All right, there you go.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Value Working Group. We are going to take a look at feedback on things that are currently in review for this release cycle, and then look at a couple new metrics that were migrated into issues because they need further refinement. Georg and I did a deep dive in that a couple weeks ago, and yeah, Sean added something on like talking through social value, which would be wonderful to start getting some metrics stored. Any other agenda items we should get in there while we're thinking out loud?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think I have comments to make on social
Fantastic.
value.
Good. All right, well, let's,
And
no
I mean,
no
I guess
spoilers.
I'll preface them by saying that I do think, I think it's a very useful metric, but I think it needs supporting metrics that are more discrete and consistent with the rest of the way that the CHAOSS metrics are defined.
Cool.
You're talking about the social currency.
So
I was,
social currency.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I got all the social things mixed up.
no problem.
Let's
All
talk
right,
about
so
our social media metrics next.
that sounds terrible. I haven't had it.
Sorry
I don't
about
want to do that. I can share. Would it be helpful to share the screen?
yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
always.
Let me. Is that working? Can you see? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Look at us. We are sharing stuff on Linux. So it's a brave new world. Good deal. Okay, so first up would be redesign of the focus areas. Release notes. Yeah, my totally biased comment is that this is awesome, but just to refresh our memory, we made a really big transition from a previous structure to trying to redefine how we talk about value. And Matt G brought us through a great process that landed on these four. So just take a moment to refresh your memory on the focus area and the goal associated with it, and bring up if you have comments.
So I mean, yes, I love the change. It's also reflected in here. Oops, not there.
Oh, you want to go to the spreadsheet
website? Yeah, no, it's also reflected. Why in the world? It's also reflected just on the metrics webpage.
Okay.
Already.
I can't get to chat on Zoom.
Okay, so it's just chaos.community/metrics.
Yeah. That is an
You
interesting
roll down to the bottom, or just click on the value one. Communal value.
Yeah. Focus areas.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So I see the goal here is phrased as a question.
Yeah, we should fix that.
Yeah, should it be a declarative statement or a question?
Yeah, the former.
Okay, cool.
So there, we found something.
Hey, we did a thing. Good.
I'll put a PR in to change that.
Fantastic. And where is this generated from?
GitHub, CHAOSS /website.
Oh, okay. We do have access to the website. I forgot about that. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you want to PR that in, that would be fantastic.
Certainly will.
Good.
Just figure out where it is, but yes, I can do that.
Oops, focus areas. Good deal. All right, well, so going back to this list to see if we like it. So attentive to improving the lives of monetarily valuable to the organization, valuable to the individual, valuable to its community of users. I mean, I keep reading it, I keep liking it more, but any fresh eyes, fresh opinions?
Actually, now that you're showing this, the
Mm-hmm.
goal here is a little bit different than what we have on the web page. So like social value or whatever, organizational value is identify if a project is monetarily, so on and so forth. And on the web page, on the metrics tab,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different. It starts with understand versus identify.
Oh yeah, no, that's important.
So I'll probably go with the repo.
Yeah.
Just take
Identify.
that.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of cruising through like the differentiation between identify and understand. Um, yeah, I think if we're ultimately pointing to metrics, identify seems to be the
I'm fine
common.
with that. I'm
Yeah.
a little curious as to how those two got out of sync, but anyway, doesn't matter.
You know, I bet this was copy and pasted from the spreadsheet work that we did,
Oh,
and the spreadsheet's out of sync with what we ended up keying in.
okay. Well, I will get all of these in sync using this, what you're showing right now.
Okay. So
I have a quick question. Would
please.
it make sense, or does it even matter if we should say identify the degree to which, or something like that? Because the way it's read, it's like either a yes no thing to me personally. So I don't know if it's helpful to kind of qualify that a little bit. Like either
Yeah.
it is attentive or it isn't, or it is valuable or it isn't. And I think that that's not like it can't be a yes or no thing. It would be a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it may not matter. Like it just might be like semantics. So whatever you guys think.
To me, words matter.
Yeah. I'm on board with that a lot. Yeah, implying a spectrum or continuum approach to each and all of these metrics, especially if there's any way to kind of nudge the relative value when appropriate. Like I think that's what we're living in value group, especially. It's like what I value could be wildly different and distinct from what you value.
So we could say, Elizabeth, you had suggested basically removing the if to
Yeah.
degree which, I mean, would just adding how instead of if work?
Yeah, I think so.
Identify how
Yeah.
a project.
Yeah.
So are we more focused on the procedural part if we are saying how?
I mean, yeah, I suppose.
I think because there is some like so some projects are clearly designed to be for social good, like that's their thing, that's what they're doing. But there's also kind of a gray area of projects that support projects like that. So I know I've been in conversations where that argument has been made that, well, this project that does really great things wouldn't even exist without our project that feeds into it. So like there is a degree to which it helps social good, but like as the lines get, more and more dotted, I think it's important to kind of differentiate. So, like a project that was made for like Code for America, for instance, is like, that's a solid line. Says, yes, this is, pretty high level of social good. Whereas any dependencies that they're relying on, any software dependencies that they're relying on would be more of a dotted line. So it does provide social good in that way, but not as clearly as some others. So I think that maybe just, allowing for that kind of gray area is important.
Okay, so I'm going to add this. So I'm just going to go with the degree.
Yeah.
So identify.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how you do that through metrics. Like, that's the question, right? Like how clear is it?
Oh, we will find a way.
All right, I'm going to.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm doing a PR.
Great, and I'm just noting what that is in the notes. So proposals adjusting these terms to identify the degree to which a project.
Yep.
Okay. To agree to which project is monetarily valuable, the degree to which project is valuable to the individual. Yeah, it's a great distinction.
Okay, I just did that.
Awesome.
So if somebody could take a look at that real fast.
Update README. That's not what it is.
Whatever.
I
in the comments, I'm a little clearer.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong. It is an update. So.
To the README.
Thought words mattered, all of you.
Nah, not right now. They don't.
I think of commits as like promises to my future self, because I'm clearly forgetful as to what I do. So I'm pretty, do a lot with those. Awesome.
All right. I will go take those then and put them in the website and in the.
Excellent.
Okay.
Great. Other thoughts or discussion on that?
Is it important to keep the spreadsheet also in sync?
I will.
Okay.
I'll do all those. I'll do
Thanks,
the spreadsheet and the. Yep.
I've been just trying to sketch how I would understand or operationalize each of these focus areas. And I'm not going to put it up to my screen and make you try to read it right now, but I'll scan it and send it to you.
Talk us through.
The gist of it is I see projects as within a project, you can have individual value and communal value. And within an organization, you can have organizational value and individual value. And individuals can find value in projects and organizations. Can there be communal value within an organization, or does that require I think it requires a relationship to a project. Like unless an organization is contributing to a community, there's nothing inside the organization that is generating communal value that we would measure. I think we don't have to discuss this or figure it out now, but I'm just trying to sort out the relationship between all these things.
I appreciate that. That's
and
you're saying,
yeah, go ahead.
So no, just to make sure I'm following. So like when you're saying the relationship between, oh dear God.
Yeah, see, exactly. That's why I'm not putting up there.
Oh, this is awesome. If I close this screen, maybe I can get to, I don't think I can stop sharing ever or change sharing because Linux is fun. So
No, and I can't really do anything but show it on my camera because I'm not in my office right now. But
let me see if I can get you to stop sharing.
That would be
helpful.
That would be helpful. Oh, hey, there it is. I closed the lid and reopened it. Now I have access to it. There we go. Okay. So wait, Sean, why you can hold it up to the screen real quick?
I don't know if you can read that.
No, not quite.
No.
Yeah, why don't you?
I can read it. If you click on like pin video, you can make Sean like real big, and then you can see it.
Oh, okay. Finally, stop being fuzzy. There you go.
Project, individual, people, communal. Project, communal.
Projects, organization. So yeah, the thing that's interesting about the organization is like I think of an organization as it doesn't. I don't follow the American conceptualization that it's a person. Like I think it's made up of people. So it's like you have to put a bunch of the little dotted people in both those organizations or in the organization.
Yeah. I agree.
Cool.
Yeah.
Completely. No, and in that sense,
all these things.
Right. And in that sense, I think the individuals in an organization collectively could find value in something,
Right.
like even if they're not contributing to it. For instance, like there is a project called Rook in the Kubernetes community that gives access to storage vendors to have persistent storage inside Kubernetes. like you didn't have to contribute to it to have that increased value of your storage devices if somebody wrote the compatibility between those things. I think that's like an interesting way of saying like, hey, you already have like a beachhead towards value here. Like, have you thought about contributing yourself so that you can increase that value?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense as a test case?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't need to spend much time on this. I'll develop it a little bit further and share it out. But I think
Sure.
the piece that I think is important is that when it comes to, a value to humanity or the social value, the organization, the individual, and the project can all exist without having any connection to social value. Like, social value is a choice that a project makes within itself. So I think communal value exists when the project ecosystem exists, and organizational value exists and can be measured when the organization exists, and individual value exists across all of these things. And they exist just by the nature of projects and organizations and people existing. To have social value, though, is different in that it requires a conscious choice. The project or the individual or the organization has to make an effort or have an intention to build social value or to create social value.
I think you just like highlighted the really interesting philosophical conundrum in that for me, Sean, that that there are individuals or collectives of individuals who are judging whether something has social value or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like there's always that observer in this, and the observer tends to add more value if there is social value in the mission, which might lead us towards a meaningful metric for social value, that it's like the mission of the project is aligned to social outcomes.
Right.
But like, I still think that's distinct from like, is there value being added to a social good by the existence of this thing?
So yeah, I think there's a difference between sort of that would be I would think that is incidental social value. So if there isn't intentionality, the social value could dissipate if the direction of the project changes, if that's not an intention.
I think I could have like I could be trying to make a malevolent.
When I think about measuring social value, I'm running into these conundrums of how do we decide that, and to your point, Matt, who gets to say?
Yeah, who gets to decide? That's where I'm like, it is best if it's representative of people doing social work, social value work. So I think as much as all of us care about that, I can't speak for all of you, but I know I'm not the right person to be saying like, hey, this is how social value activism works in the open source community. I've never done that. So
right.
I think, and to your point, I think we can, like, maybe there's just a low hanging fruit here where some projects are explicitly designed for that. Like Refuge Restrooms is an open source project that lists restrooms that are gender neutral. So
amazing.
You know what? So like that is a clear picture of a social good, open source for social good. Even though it's not like your traditional, it's an app and everything, but it's also like a listing of all, and it's it's a full on project. So I think that like that is a clear 100%, like that's the whole point of it. And so maybe there's like a low hanging fruit there where we can just say, is the mission of the project explicitly around social good? And again, there will be some gray areas, but if it's like, some are going to be clearer than others, I think. So maybe that's just a metric we could go on. And I don't know how you capture that automatically or programmatically, but
I mean, it wouldn't be the first qualitatively informed metric that we have in the project. Yeah. So I think there's something meaningful to capture there for sure.
Yeah,
and I think have tags that social impact is a tag or a category. Like we could even scoop some of those just for like a something easy-ish to work from or to start from.
Yeah, I mean, my first foray into open source software work was actually a humanitarian free and open source software project where we had college students working on open source projects that were explicitly designed to be a social good. And there's a difference in so I think there's intentional and unintentional social good. And at some point we may want to talk about that distinction.
Sure.
What the metrics for those things, it's not that one is better than the other, but how we measure them might be different.
Yeah. What's also can get very challenging here is that, social good is like philosophically connected to a understanding of morals. And like we're making moral judgments by saying something is socially good and something else is not socially good. And
Right.
I just came across unwoke.com, which is a hiring site for people who are not agreeing to what they believe woke companies are doing around Black Lives Matter and gender rights. So
a lot of white men.
Yes, obviously, yeah. So like I don't do this to be a devil's advocate. I don't think devil's advocacy is helpful, but I am reading a lot about political morality and how we aren't all framed to see it identically. So, I could be working on that site and say that like that is a moral good because it's giving people freedom. And so like this is a deep well we can fall down and explore. So I really like your idea, Elizabeth, of starting with, well, how about we just like take people at their word to start.
But I think our goal is like to have some metrics whereby you can measure some social value. It's up to the user and their perception and their background to decide. Like we are there to just develop tools or help them to gauge that.
Yeah.
Not to decide, okay, this is socially good or this is socially wrong. We are just there like focusing to develop tools to help people in their situation or in their context to gauge whether it's morally good or not.
Right.
That's yeah, let's see.
It's we don't have to solve this now. Let's focus on our metrics. But as I was trying to sort of think through the focus areas, those are some thoughts I had, and we can follow them up later. We don't need to spend more time on it.
No, it warrants a discussion, but yeah, definitely we can sink many hours of our lives and go back to philosophers of great prominence throughout time.
Can I make a few comments? I'm gonna do my best as I was multitasking by doing updating the goals and also listening. Sean, I thought I heard you say that social value is the only one of the focus areas where there's a conscious decision, or did you not say that?
Yeah. I mean, and Matt had a good counterpoint that there is sort of incidental or unintentional social good that arises out of a number of projects, and that I think that is harder to measure than intentional.
Well, okay, my comment was going to be like on the other focus areas. It feels like those can be very intentional too. So I mean, if we have like corporate value, that's a very intentional thing to derive. So why is intentionality important?
The rest of them will exist no matter what we do. And
no matter what who does.
No matter what anyone in the open source community through its existence, it creates individual value, organizational value, and communal value simply by doing what?
And social value, like the foundation of the Four Freedoms, the whole start of the Free Software Foundation is all principles. Like read the GNU Manifesto and you're like, this whole thing we're doing like evolved out of that as a core principle, not an incidental outcome.
Right. It was deliberate.
Yeah.
And I guess what I would say is if you decide to create an open source project, communal, organizational, and individual value can be measured and kind of are there. The project doesn't exist without those things. The projects can exist with only, I would say, incidental social value. Like there's projects that exist explicitly for social value. A lot of projects incidentally create social value. but social value isn't always necessarily a component in an open source project. At least it's harder to see. And so I think it makes the measurement questions around social value or the internet as a social good, it just makes it's a different kettle of fish, because I'm always going to be able to find these other three and measure them in some way. They're more, I guess they're more tangent, they're more concrete.
So I don't know that every project necessarily has organizational value. So I think I guess I'm just trying to figure out why we need the concept of intentionality and the way that individual value is written.
The way Matt's point that we don't need intentionality is well taken.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe. Oh, okay.
But I think when we talk about it, we kind of do mean intentionality to some degree.
It's a great point to bring up. I think we're starting with the most obvious, and like the most obvious thing to us is our organizations that are intentionally trying to bring about better outcomes for people. It's not like, oh, well, React.js is used in this project that is doing something really good, therefore React.js and therefore Facebook itself are all doing really good things for the world. Like
right.
the connective tissue between like the outcome of this project and the outcome of the intention, we do measure it. It's very important to us as people. But yeah, so it's going to be a tricky one. And I think taking it case by case will be it'll be just as tricky as the rest of value group though, in my opinion. Like I think we're all four of these are how the hell, what the hell kind of questions pretty frequently.
Yeah.
I had also gone to the Ford Foundation, just kind of slowly kind of moving through their site. And they have ways that they talk about projects. And I pulled some of their text about, do you see that at the bottom of page 1? Disrupting systems to advance social justice, systems that are disruptive, strengthening the social justice sector, driving social justice and building movements across the globe. So, I mean, maybe when we think about social justice, we can rely on some of the definitions that other organizations that are heavily steeped in this space have already helped frame. Just a thought.
Yeah. There's opportunity for the open source community to explicitly work to weave social justice and the internet as a social good into itself, because kids today are highly motivated by the social effect that the work that they do has. They don't, they want to make money, but a lot of my students really care about having a social impact. It's very different than the students I had 10, 15 years ago. Social impact, social justice, social good, they motivate students. So to the extent that we can use these metrics about social value to foreground that part of open source, I think we draw people in.
Good.
I think it could also be not just social justice, but also like public health, for instance, like obviously with COVID, like that's a huge impact that, isn't necessarily justice related, but yeah. So this is just another example.
Yeah, this was certainly not the extensive list. This was my 5-minute copy and paste.
And I feel like I hijacked things a little bit, but I was really just trying to distinguish the different focus areas in my head and think about what kinds of metrics might emerge in each area.
I have a quick question, just for clarification. When we mention, or when we define organization, the term organization, are we speaking just companies, or are we speaking like nonprofits, or any kind of just like CHAOSS is an organization technically?
When I use the term, it's not just for profits. I use the phrase for profit when I'm talking or corporation. An organization.
Correct.
I think if it has some kind of legal organization and structure and management facilities, it's not a network. It's got a boundary.
Okay.
You're out. That's how I think of it.
We pull from too is if the organization running the projects like is defined as a nonprofit, then I mean, that line is stronger too, even if something that they're doing, I mean, it maybe would be stronger. I don't know.
Like the Free Software Foundation's an organization, and clearly social impact is one of their goals.
Yeah. So around organizational value in particular, like this is like what motivated me to be more active in CHAOSS. Like I really am fascinated by the different means by which companies add a monetary value to our work. So the word monetary, it should be everywhere in relation to the goal there. Oh, it's not in. Why is it not there? Huh. Oh wait, no, it is. I'm looking at individual value. Huh. If the project is monetarily valuable, because even, and I think that scales really well in what you were just saying, that like even nonprofits, my wife has always worked in nonprofits. They're always focused on where they're getting funding from and like what USAID grant to apply for. And then you gotta switch modes into like, okay, how are they perceiving my value so that I can capture this value for our maybe our very social good or market share or whatever, but there is some commonality there that I think is a really fun playbook for people to learn from. Cool. All right, so
I had a few other comments.
Yeah.
So one was kind of a little, it reminded me a little of D&I. So self-reporting some of these metrics might be a little bit bad. So we have to think about ways that if we develop the metrics, whatever those might be and however they might be categorized as eliciting social value, like how do we make sure that, say, an organization like, I'll stick with the Ford Foundation, if they're trying to understand a project's social value so that they can make funding decisions, like how do we make sure that the Ford Foundation can make that determination, not just the project, saying we decree ourselves as socially valuable?
Yeah.
Like when we talk about, say, like,
distinction.
so again, not to be sorted out here, but like Node.js or something, like the argument that they have an impact on socially, sure. I mean, I guess, I don't think that's quite what Ford is looking for.
They arguably have a biggest impact because it's a really adopted software. And you're like, no, let's back it up, buddy.
Right. So
right, that's where you get into like those dotted lines of like, well, anything could be considered socially valuable to someone somewhere, you know? So yeah, I totally agree, Matt. It's a really hard question to answer. I think if it was easy, it would have been answered already. So I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a hard thing to say, which is maybe where the degree to which that comes in, but I don't, I don't know how you do that automatically. Like that's the rub, right?
Yeah.
I really like that point though. It's like remembering that the person we're thinking of as the observer, as the measurer of these metrics, they're external to the projects so that they can have a reasonable assessment of whether something is socially valuable or monetarily valuable to them. It's not about the project being able to game it and like say, hey, see, we
will make you a ton of money and we change democracy.
Yeah, if you want that, go to Silicon Valley for a little bit. I've played that game with startups, and like you don't need to do that. We don't need to get into that. But do we explicitly say that anywhere? Because that really just clicked for me that like the observer is external to the project, not internal.
I think maybe we would capture that in the metric itself.
Okay.
Maybe in the description, in the objectives.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts going through my mind, but they'll just derail us. So
cool. Let's try to do one more thing on the schedule, and we can pass on new metrics because there's plenty of other stuff to review for now and talk about that another time. But I do want to give a little bit of time to a discussion, that deserves it on what do we do with SCMS.
Can I make one more comment? No, it'll be short,
Dylan.
but like, no, it'll be short.
Yeah.
But with respect
Yeah.
to social value, when we were doing the D&I stuff and we brought folks in like Emma Irwin, it just like
Yeah.
opened my eyes as to what D&I is about. And so we could have talked about it forever, and then we could have talked about it for like 5 years, and then Emma would have shown up, and I would have been like, oh, everything we talked about was wrong.
Good. Yeah.
So we might want to think about people who do this for a living, because they will say things and we will be like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant, and
Yeah.
we need to do that. So that's all.
That's a great point. Yeah, there's nothing that like gets you past philosophical conundrums like somebody who actually does the work.
They've been thinking about it for years and years and years, and they've gone through the trials and tribulations of
Yeah.
how to think about it, and it would cut a lot of corners for us in a positive way.
Good. Could we all kind of take a takeaway from this meeting of like thinking of who's like, let me open an issue for that, if that makes sense. Like, who's in our network who could weigh in on social value to give us some direction? Okay, I'm just going to open an issue and we can all comment on that so that we start to capture it and then reach out and then interview them on a podcast.
Okay, now I'm done. I promise.
That was brilliant. No, it's a great addition. Okay, that leads you. Cool. So just to circle back on this one on SCMS, this is up for review right now. It is a very deep, dense topic. I don't want us to like take the time to pick at it right now or like have strong opinions on the exact implementation. But I did want to ask, like, what are reasonable next steps for people? Because whatever it is, I really want Venia there to be able to talk through it, because it is definitely her project and something she holds quite close. And I want to respect that. She puts a lot of expertise in this I don't fully understand. So what do we need to be able to move forward to a place where we feel good about this being a re-released metric that makes sense to people?
So I can say that we are going to pilot that metric with the CHAOSS project itself.
Oh, great.
So we're going to do kind of a self analysis of it and how it's going and things like that. So I can speak to that. And I am in the process of setting up a meeting with Dylan and Venia on that.
Cool.
So yeah, we're going to be like the pilot. So if there are holes in it, we'll hopefully find them in the implementation.
I think from my perspective, and I've expressed this before and I'll express it in the comments, this metric does not look like any other metric we've developed. And my principal concern is that it risks diffusing the coherence that exists in the way that we define metrics. In other words, if this scale of complexity is introduced into a lot of metrics, I think CHAOSS as a project could become more difficult for newcomers to digest, because you hit this metric and it's so different than the others. That might not be a bad thing. This may be an example of a different type of metric, but I think in some way we have to point out that there are I have to go through it and read it, but ballpark 15 or 16 different specific things that could be, in the ordinary CHAOSS way of doing things, discrete metrics. And I don't know if it's good or bad that we've sort of simplified and bundled all that into one, but I do think it makes it harder for someone to take a look at it and build a tool that operationalizes this as a metric. Because you've got to build 15 or 16 specific different things to build this metric. And so as a person building a tool, I want to have the discussion somewhere about what are we doing here in terms of how are we defining these metrics? Because it's not clear to me that I don't have an opinion about it, whether it's good or bad, but it's certainly different, and
Sure.
that has to be addressed. Yeah.
Loud and clear. Yeah, Matt, what's up?
So Sean, you had a squeaky toy in the back.
That's why I've been muted most of the time, is my dog is squeaking on his squeaky toy.
It's wonderful comic relief.
I guess two comments. One is Sean, just in terms of the deployment, Venu, as one of the Google Summer of Code students, is deploying this metric in Grimoire Lab. So we'll see how that work goes. So that's been his task. I don't know how to respond to your comment other than it is being worked on. I will say that I do agree with Sean. This is the way that CHAOSS metrics have kind of come to be, are these very discrete or granular metrics.
Yeah.
And that's, so if you take a look at any of the working groups, they're like age of issue, contributor type. They're kind of these discrete things. And this one is certainly a very composite-y metric that has many discrete metrics. So at some point we may or may not need to think about, as a project as a whole, how we have discrete metrics on one hand, and then, for example, the work that Sean has been doing with Zephyr, Sean, those graphs you've been showing, like, yeah. According to like composite metrics, each one of those would then be a metric, right?
Exactly. So the having those discrete metrics makes it easier for people to understand. When I put 5 to 7 metrics together in a community report for one part of a community report, each of the definitions of the things that they're looking at on that graph are clearly defined. And that's not done in the social currency metric. There's a lot of allusions to other things. So I think we're moving in the direction of what is useful is not individual discrete metrics treated in isolation. The questions people have are more complex. Where we started was everybody's arguing about what a commit was. Right?
Right.
This might be part of the natural evolution. It's happening in the community reports that we're building. It's happening with this metric, and it's a discussion to have so that we go forward with some purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Can we define some granular metrics from social currency metric and then have a composite metric as a social currency as a way to operationalize this?
Are you saying like we are kind of missing those atomic parts that would build up
yes.
into the social currency? I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm in full agreement.
It'll be a good idea to think like, okay, what individual composite metric we can define from that, and as a collection of this groups into a social currency metric.
Yeah, and I don't think that stops the release of this metric, but I think it's something to consider. What are the discrete metrics that we might want to define so that this comprehensive metric is more easily understood by people who are not experts like Vinya.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be kind of a next step, right? I agree, Sean. Don't stop it now, but then kind of in the next release cycle, ask for the development of those the discrete or atomic metrics, kind of defining those individual components a little bit more clearly.
Yeah. I'm reading Atomic Habits right now, so I'm using atomic instead of discrete.
No, we've used atomic before, so it's okay. They're all it's just words. They don't matter.
It's just words. No one cares what you think, but it's just words, so that's not mean. No. Then on great point on trying to, if we could map between those two states, like I also like really like what you're saying, Sean, that it's such a natural evolution that like we're getting to the point where people want playbooks and like completeness. Not to be handed like a ton of Legos and say, here's your castle. And I think we're almost ready to give them that too. Oh, you're on mute.
We've defined enough of the dictionary that we can start to write stories. Maybe that's the way to think about it.
Great metaphor. Cool. All right. Well, we're at the top of our time to leave some space between meetings or whatever you're up to. So thank you. This was really helpful and interesting. Sean, if you wouldn't mind sending that diagram or whatever evolution of that diagram you get to, I'd be fascinated.
I'll just send it as is.
Do it. Yeah.
Then you can comment on it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I may refine it over time, but I'll just send it as is here when I get my office back in 10 minutes.
All right.